हरिं विश्वमेवेदं पुरुषस्तद्विश्वमुपजीवति पतिं विश्वस्यात्मेश्वरगुं शाश्वतगुं शिवमच्युतं नारायणं महाज्ञेयं विश्वात्मानं परायणं नारायण परो ज्योतिरात्मा नारायण परः नारायण परं ब्रह्म तत्त्वं नारायण परः नारायण परो ध्याता ध्यानं नारायण परः यच्च किञ्चित् जगत् सर्वं दृश्यते श्रूयतेऽपि वा अन्तर्बहिश्च तत्सर्वं व्याप्य नारायणस्थितः अनन्तमव्ययं कविगुं समुद्रेन्तं विश्वशम्भुवम् पद्मकोशप्रतीकाशगुं हृदयं चाप्यधोमुखम् अधो निष्ठावितस्यान्ते नाभ्यामुपरि तिष्ठति ज्वालमालाकुलं भाति विश्वस्यायतनं महत् सन्ततगुं शिलाभिस्तुलम्बत्याकोशसन्निभम् तस्यान्ते सुशिरगुं सूक्ष्मं तस्मिन् सर्वं प्रतिष्ठितम् तस्य मध्ये महानग्निर्विश्वाचिर्विश्वतो मुखः सोग्रभुग्विभजन्तिष्ठन्नाहारमचरत् कविः तिर्यगूर्ध्वमदशायि रश्मयस्तस्य सन्तताः सन्तापयते स्वं देहमापादतलमस्तकः तस्य मध्ये वह्निशिखा अनीयोर्ध्वा व्यवस्थितः नीलतो यदमध्यस्तात् विद्युल्लेखे भभास्वरा निवारशोकवत्तन्वी पीताभास्वत्यनुपमा तस्या शिखाया मध्ये परमात्मा व्यवस्थितः स ब्रह्म स शिव स हरिः सेन्द्र सोऽक्षरः परमस्वराट् ऋतगुं सत्यं परं ब्रह्म पुरुषं कृष्णपिङ्गलम् ऊर्ध्वरेतं विरूपाक्षं विश्वरूपाय वै नमो नमः ॐ नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु
So inviting you, RHEA, to come up.
I'm afraid if I use the mic. Thank you. Pranams to Gayatri Prana Mataji, SRIDHARAPRANA Mataji, Nityatma Prana Mataji, and Roberta. Today I will be reciting Swamiji's inaugural address at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Sisters and brothers of America, It fills my heart with joy unspeakable to rise in response to the warm and cordial welcome you have given us. I thank you in the name of the most ancient order of monks in the world. I thank you in the name of the mother of religions. And I thank you in the name of millions and millions of Hindu people of all classes and sects. My thanks also to some of the speakers on this platform who, referring to the delegates from the Orient, have told you that these men from far-off nations may well claim the honor of bearing to different lands the idea of toleration. I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. I am proud to tell you that we have gathered in our bosom the purest remnant of the Israelites, who came to southern India and took refuge with us in the very year in which their holy temple was shattered to pieces by Roman tyranny. I am proud to belong to the religion which has sheltered and is still fostering the remnant of the grand Zoroastrian nation. I will quote to you, brethren, a few lines from a hymn which I remember to have repeated from my earliest boyhood, which is every day repeated by millions of human beings. As the different streams, having their sources in different places, all mingle their water in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths that men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee. The present convention, which is one of the most august assemblies ever held, is in itself a vindication, a declaration to the world of the wonderful doctrine preached in the Gita. Whosoever comes to me, through whatsoever form, I reach him. All men are struggling through paths which in the end lead to me. Sectarianism, bigotry, and its horrible descendant fanaticism have long possessed this beautiful earth. They have filled the earth with violence, drenched it often and often with human blood, destroyed civilization, and sent whole nations to despair. Had it not been for these horrible demons, human society would be far more advanced than it is now. But their time is come, and I fervently hope that the bell that tolled this morning in the honor of this convention may be the death knell of all fanaticism, of all persecutions with the sword or with the pen, and of all uncharitable feelings between persons wending their way to the same goal. Thank you.
Well, we have a problem that I was wishing we wouldn't have. There's one person in our list there that I don't recognize their name. Philip, if you're there, just put a little message up for me, but I don't see your name in our list. I have emailed him. There could be some problem with the confusion of the timing, with the time difference, or it's possible he's going to just show up. It's a little bit earlier than what I expected, so possibly about 15:15 is what he might be aiming for. So maybe we hold on. That's not him. Let me see. We just give him a couple of minutes.
We chant Murta Maheshwaran chanting. Yeah, just one, not much.
मूर्तमहेश्वरमुज्ज्वल भास्करमेष्टममर नरवन्द्यम् मूर्तमहेश्वरमुज्ज्वल भास्करमेष्टममर नरवन्द्यम् वन्दे वेदतनुमूर्जितगर्हित काञ्चनकामिनि बन्धम् वन्दे वेदतनुमूर्जितगर्हित काञ्चनकामिनि बन्धम् मूर्तमहेश्वरमुज्ज्वल भास्करमेष्टममर नरवन्द्यम् कोटिभानुकरदीप्तसिंहमहो कटितटकौपीनवन्दम् अभिरभिहुङ्कारनादितदिमुख अभिरभिहुङ्कारनादितदिमुख प्रचण्ड ताण्डव नृत्यम् मूर्तमहेश्वर उज्ज्वल भास्करमेष्टममर नरवन्द्यम् भुक्ति मुक्ति कृपा कटाक्ष प्रेक्षण मगदल विदलन दक्षम् भुक्ति मुक्ति कृपा कटाक्ष प्रेक्षण मगदल विदलन दक्षम् बालचन्द्रधरमिन्दुवन्द्यमिह बालचन्द्रधरमिन्दुवन्द्यमिह नौमि गुरुविवेकानन्दम् बालचन्द्रधरमिन्दुवन्द्यमिह नौमि गुरुविवेकानन्दम् मूर्तमहेश्वरमुज्ज्वल भास्करमेष्टममर नरवन्द्यम् वन्दे वेदतनुमूर्जितगर्हित काञ्चनकामिनि बन्धम् मूर्तमहेश्वर उज्ज्वल भास्करमेष्टममर नरवन्द्यम्
All right, happy to let you know that Philip has joined us. He's waiting there. He was right on time. Thank you very much, Philip. And it's good morning from a very wet Sydney to maybe a rather cool Massachusetts. You're in a different climate to us at the moment. Just to introduce Philip to you all, he's the author of numerous books, notably American Veda, from Emerson and the Beatles to yoga and meditation, how Indian spirituality changed the West. He has his most recent title is Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. Philip's a public speaker, workshop leader, spiritual counselor, meditation teacher, and he's an ordained interfaith minister. And he resides in the scenic Berkshires area in the northeastern US state of Massachusetts. He has a Spirit Matters podcast, and he frequently publishes on Substack, conducts online courses and workshops, and contributes regularly to several publications. And I can tell you, I've been reading his blogs over the last many weeks. Very, very interesting, very topical, and very good at relating Vedanta to our modern world. So, Philip, just give me a moment. I've got to do a little bit with the technology there, and I'll get you up, and we look forward to hearing from you. Yes, Philip. Welcome.
On?
Yes, you're on, and we can hear you.
Good. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for the kind invitation to join you. I'm honored. Disappointed only that when I heard from you, it was not to fly to Sydney and be with you in person. I'm always honored to speak at events honoring Swami Vivekananda. I suppose many of you appreciate the enormous impact he and the lineage that he began in honor of Sri Ramakrishna has had worldwide. I can't speak to Australia, but the very fact that you exist tells me that his impact down under, as we say, is analogous at least to what we experienced here in the US. As you know, he spent close to 4 years in the US after his great triumph at the Parliament of World Religions in 1893 in Chicago. And then, there's much to be said about that event and the legacy of it. But he spent nearly 4 years here in 2 separate trips. And what he left behind when he passed so tragically at not yet 40 is enormous, and it's not entirely appreciated, partly because, of course, he existed at a time when there were no video cameras to place his visage and his actual voice on YouTube or anything, and the passage of time. But, he left behind a number of things here in the US, and I'm assuming something similar in Australia. One was devotees who were dedicated to continuing his teachings and securing them as part of the philosophical and spiritual fabric of America. He left behind voluminous writings, and his 4 slim volumes on the 4 yogas are still read today. And people have done such an incredibly good job of gathering his work in volumes. And the other, of course, is that he left behind centers like the one you're sitting in. He established a few here in the US himself before he left, most significantly the one in New York City and elsewhere. And those persist to this day. And the other contribution came over the course of the whole of 20th century and continues into the 21st, which is his influence directly or indirectly through the Swamis who were trained in Bellarmut and continue to be trained in Bellarmut, the ones who came to the West and were prepared to introduce Vedanta to American population, and I assume the Australian population, in ways that were compatible with the modern age and the particular culture that they were being introduced to, which meant being compatible with reason and the scientific temperament, and not incompatible with the dominant religious and philosophical strains of the West. And we'll come back to that because that is such a critical factor. But what I was alluding to is the influence that Vivekananda, through his writings and the template he set for how to skillfully adapt Vedanta to the Western world, which was continued by the Swamis who came to occupy those centers and start new ones from India, who in turn influenced prominent American thinkers, artists, scientists, who, through their own expressions, adapted the teachings to their personal lives because of the impact of the teachings on their personal lives, adapted them to their areas of expertise, and transmitted them the knowledge of Vedanta reliably and skillfully to vast numbers of people in the West. I should say, just by way of history, Swami Vivekananda's appearance in Chicago in 1893 was a watershed moment. But it wasn't the beginning of the transmission of Vedanta and yoga philosophy to the West. It started through books almost 100 years earlier, when the links between mostly Bengal and Kolkata and New England, where I now live, the Boston area especially, through trading and the translation of Indian spiritual texts and the discovery of Vedanta by British, mostly British scholars and artists and poets who were among the very first to discover in India's spiritual heritage something of enormous value and sophistication, as opposed to the assumption that was dominant that what was called Hinduism was a primitive religion that would give way to the missionaries who were sent to convert the heathen in India. But some of the people who were scholars and with that agenda discovered something of tremendous value in the Vedantic teachings, in the Gita and other works, and said so, and started to transmit them through commentaries and translations to thinkers in the West, especially New England. The subtext of American Veda that was just read to you says from Emerson and the Beatles, etc. Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was one of the great thinkers in American history, sort of the father of anything you could call American philosophy, was one of the early adopters. And it was through books in his own family library, because his father was drawn to them. And they were Christian ministers, but they found in the teachings from India something of tremendous value. This phenomenon of people becoming what's called now spiritual but not religious. I think of Emerson as the American founder of that. He was a spiritual revolutionary, and his inspiration and the grounding that he brought to his work, which is still inspiring and transforming people in America, came directly from his reading of Eastern texts. And then there were others. Henry David Thoreau wrote about Walden, wrote about the Gita in his famous book, Walden, about his time on Walden Pond, which is just about an hour and a half from me. And that's the first, reading that was the first time I ever heard of the Gita when I was a student. And because I had such admiration for Thoreau, I went out in New York City to get a copy of the Gita, and I couldn't find one. It was just not known the way it is now with, I have 15 different translations behind me. But the one I found was the one written by Swami Prabhavananda of the Vedanta Society in Los Angeles, and in collaboration with the great novelist Christopher Isherwood. And that Gita was read by more people in the mid-20th century than I realized at the time. But Isherwood's reputation and Swami Prabhavananda's erudition and skillful translation attracted a lot of readers. But then came Swami Vivekananda in 1893. I mentioned the antecedents because those were the people influenced by Emerson and what we call the Transcendentalist movement here and the New Thought movement here. They all incorporated the teachings of what they would have called Hinduism and Buddhism into their own teachings, and they were the sort of prime recipients, the main people who went to see Vivekananda and spread the word about him. So in this way, there's a buildup of momentum. And then Vivekananda did what I described a minute ago and left behind a template and institutions and written work that would continue to, in the early part of the 20th century, slowly and gradually influence more and more people. And as you all know, other gurus started to come as transportation and communication technology built during the 20th century. The next most important, but what I wanted to say was Vivekananda set the template for how to introduce the teachings of any lineage connected to Vedanta and yoga into the Western atmosphere. The next highly important figure to come was in 1920 when Paramahansa Yogananda came. Many of you, I'm sure, have read his autobiography of a yogi. And his impact was extraordinary. And people don't quite realize how much he was inspired by and learned from Vivekananda and the Ramakrishna lineage. Those of you who have been to Calcutta and to the Vivekananda Museum at the site of his family home, you may not know, but you can walk from there 10 or 15 minutes and be at the home where Yogananda spent his life from age 13 through college and his first couple of years as a Swami. He was deeply influenced by the reputation, the fame, and the stature of Vivekananda. He would go to Dakshineswar, to the temple there, and meditate and bask in Ramakrishna's presence. His primary mentor, before he met his own Sadguru, was who he called Master Mahasya. But he was M, the author of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And M took Yogananda, young before he was named Yogananda, under his wing and would take him to Dakshineswar all the time. So that's a direct influence of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda on a major guru who had a huge impact on the West. Yogananda passed in 1952. When the 1960s came and people like me, young seekers, were opening up to the ideas that came from the traditions born in India, we had access to many new gurus and Buddhist masters who were coming here because jet travel had opened up and so forth. But the other thing that we had access to were the books and journals being published by the Vedanta Press in Los Angeles. So that's how we were introduced to Vedanta, to the practical Vedanta that Vivekananda introduced to the world or to the Western world. That Prabhavananda Isherwood Gita, writers of great stature in the West, like Aldous Huxley and Joseph Campbell and Houston Smith and others, were writing about Vedanta in English we could all appreciate and learn from. And these were skilled scholars who understood how to communicate these ideas to not just young people like me, but to fellow academics and scholars and so forth. And those books were enormously popular. I remember having an anthology of essays called Vedanta for the Modern West, or some such thing. And of course, Isherwood wrote his biography of Ramakrishna and other works. And these were enormously successful. Houston Smith was the leading scholar of religion in America, and he was directly impacted by the Swami he studied under as a young man in St. Louis. And Joseph Campbell became a world-renowned expert on the world's mythologies and religious traditions. And he studied with Swami Nikhilananda in New York. And I was directly influenced by all that. And plus, the novelist J.D. Salinger, who was a big influence on me because I loved his writing, but also because he wrote about young American seekers who were influenced by Vedanta. He had the same guru as Joseph Campbell did, Swami Nikhilananda. And millions of people read Salinger. So that's how Swami Vivekananda set the template, influenced all the subsequent gurus who came here, and set the tone for how the teachings of Vedanta would be best adapted to Western thinking and Western culture. And the others took it from there. The subsequent swamis who came to the West from Bellarmine and the gurus who achieved a certain amount of fame and the yogacharyas who achieved some fame in the West, they all owed a great debt to Ramakrishna and the whole lineage that came through him and Vivekananda. Which brings us to the present, and that legacy continues. I just gave a talk on my new book about karma at the New York Vedanta Society. I'm going to be speaking at the one in LA in March. And Swami Sarva Priyananda at the New York Center has an enormous following on YouTube now. So the legacy continues. Things like this go, up and down. But it continues in other ways as well, because what happened in the 60s and into the 70s especially was the teachings caught on. You all know probably, you know of Yogananda. You probably also know of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who became known around the world as the Beatles guru when they discovered his form of meditation and went to India, and the whole world, woke up to the fact that meditation is good for you and that there are gurus and mantras, and all this became a part of the spiritual landscape of the West when the mass media picked up on it after the Beatles. Well, what's less known is that as a result of that phenomenon, scientists started to do research on practices like meditation and hatha yoga. That was 50 plus years ago. I, in fact, as a young newcomer to these teachings, through certain circumstances, volunteered to meditate at Harvard Medical School with a blood pressure cuff and all that. So I was a subject in one of those early experiments that caught the attention of the public and the press and made these teachings even more mainstream than they had been before. And now, of course, thousands of studies later, doctors and psychotherapists and so forth recommend the practices from the yoga repertoire and recommend meditation and are studying Sanskrit chanting. And all this helps to bring these teachings into the mainstream. There are challenges because the teachings have to be adapted to the time and place they're introduced to. And because they're universal as anything in science, they can be adapted, but they have to be adapted skillfully. And Swami Vivekananda was the great example of that many of the other teachers who came after him followed. But at the same time, life being what it is, especially when people have a commercial interest, the teachings have to be adapted skillfully and with integrity. Sometimes they get distorted and diluted and corrupted, sometimes out of just ignorance, and sometimes because people want to have a following. They want people to pay for their services, and they may make compromises. We see that in yoga studios now, where yoga has become, in many places, reduced to a form of physical exercise, and the deep spiritual and philosophical heritage is underplayed. Those are areas of concern. And the same could be true of Vedanta philosophy if one is not careful. There's a lot of distortion of what Advaita Vedanta actually means. And I'm happy to say that there's many people actively correcting those distortions. And the Swamis of your lineage are among those people making those corrections. But we have to be vigilant, those of us who care. My book, the new book that was mentioned, Karmic Relief, one of the reasons I wrote it was because karma is a good example of a precept, a principle, an insight, a revelation that was born in ancient India and was kept alive because it makes sense, and then came to the West. So karma entered our vocabulary just like Guru did, and mantra did, and Vedanta did, and yoga did. And over the last couple of decades, I was seeing the word karma being used all the time in the news, in sports, in literature, in TV commercials, in product names, and in popular music. There's a Taylor Swift song called Karma. And you see it show up in television programs and dramas and comedies. And I thought, well, this is a great example of how these teachings have become part of American life. They're just part of the fabric of the culture now. And this is a great thing. But then I noticed that, it was often misunderstood and misused and distorted. So I decided to write a book about it. And some of my leading sources when I was doing my research are the Swamis in the Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition. One of the Swamis in LA, Swami Maidananda, wrote a scholarly treatise on karma, and I learned from him. And so this is an ongoing challenge, but it's also an ongoing important phenomenon. I'm convinced, and when I wrote American Veda, which came out 15 years ago, I said that I thought the transmission of Vedanta and yoga to the West would be eventually understood to be one of the great developments in American history. It certainly transformed the spiritual landscape in ways that just continue to grow and grow and grow. And that prediction of mine, I'm happy to say, has been vindicated because it's even more, the influence is even more now than it was when I wrote American Veda. But it comes in all these different ways, through science, through the arts, through psychology, through Western philosophy. Study of consciousness now has brought Advaita Vedanta into, the mix of how to understand consciousness and how our human consciousness interacts with the larger universe. And what they're uncovering is pure Vedanta. At the same time, we have to be vigilant that the adaptation of these teachings continues to be done with integrity and is not corrupted by foolishness. I would venture to say you may have the same considerations and concerns in Australia. I, of course, could go on forever, but I know we have time considerations and there may be conversation and questions. So I'm happy to turn it over to our host who disappeared.
No, I'm here. I'm here. Oh, well, I'm almost here. Let me see. I've got to adjust the camera in a moment. But yes, so thanks very much, Philip. And we do have some time for questions and answers. And I think I will line up the camera a bit better. But if you've got a question, then you could come up onto the platform here so Philip can see you. Oh, camera's moving around while I'm here. I was just wondering, Philip, I'm always interested to know who in America now amongst famous people you could class as being followers of Vedanta. I mean, I feel it was a bit of a golden age with Swami Prabhavananda when he attracted Aldous Huxley and Christopher Isherwood, and I know there were some of the famous actors too at that time delving into it. So I'm always interested wondering now in America amongst the famous who's could be considered followers of Vedanta.
It's a good question. And I don't know exactly how to answer it. There are people of stature in the sciences and in academia, but they're not, that's not celebrity. This is, it's very hard to follow the kind of, celebrity factor that was involved when the Beatles, went to India. But there's always celebrities taking up with one guru or another, or one system of yoga or meditation after another. The filmmaker David Lynch, who passed last year, was doing a great deal of work bringing meditation to different populations. And he would marshal out celebrities like Seinfeld and others. I know for a fact that Jim Carrey is a serious student of Vedanta and other Eastern teachings. And
That's
I know,
That's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have picked that.
yeah. No, and but they're not always public about it. I mean, you could say, oh, Taylor Swift wrote a song about karma, but karma is just part of the vocabulary now, that people use as shorthand for, cause and effect and people getting, reaping what they sow. So it's hard to know whether somebody is a serious student of these things or not. But to me, the ones who have the biggest impact, aside from phenomena like the Beatles and the phase of Prabhavananda and J.D. Salinger and Campbell and Isherwood and all those, are the people doing science. And there's a lot of that, and I don't even know their names, but I'm impressed by that. And people in academia back in the 60s and 70s, the if you took a course in comparative religion, the treatment of the Eastern traditions was repulsive. Really, it was so inaccurate and so colonialized, you could say. But now it's very different. A lot of my contemporaries, people who were young hippie seekers back in the 60s and 70s, and went to ashrams in India and hung around with gurus. Some of them, matured and went to graduate school, and they've been tenured faculty all these years, and it's changed the way these teachings are transmitted. If I think of any more celebrities, I'll name drop.
Look, an invitation, please, if you have any questions. We've got some time for that. Yeah, come on. Yeah, that way Philip can see you. Nice. Maybe you can look at the camera when you're asking. You can see.
Hello, Philip. That was a very interesting talk. And I had a
Thank
question
you.
for you, and that's something of current relevance for me. And that is, do you know any links between Vedanta and AI? A lot of the people who have thought about AI have had some background or have been influenced in part by religion. For example, Steve Jobs was known to read the autobiography of a yogi every year when he used to go for a holiday in Hawaii. So I was wondering whether there is any links that you're aware of. Thank you.
That's a really good question, and I don't know. I'm not plugged into that world. You're correct about Steve Jobs. He asked that copies of the autobiography of a yogi would be handed out as his memorial service, and they were. And that was mostly the first time people heard that he had that kind of influence. There's also, as you know, in the high tech world and in the world of Silicon Valley, the sort of beating heart of AI, there's an awful lot of people from India in technological, high-level technological and theoretical positions. So it would not surprise me if many of them are guided by their understanding of Vedanta in some way. And I don't know enough. Actually, I heard Swami Sarvapriyananda interviewed recently, and the subject of AI came up. But I don't want to attempt to interpret what he said. But there are a lot of conferences about AI and technology and the study of consciousness. And I know he participates, and I would hope that other experts on Vedanta would also be participating. And it would not shock me that if some of the leading thinkers in the field, I mean, look, if you go back in time, 100 years ago, Erwin Schrödinger was a great student of Vedanta. Heisenberg, Oppenheimer, all these leading figures in physics. And as many of you know, Nikola Tesla was a friend of Vivekananda. And he quoted him a lot, and they learned from one another. So this kind of link goes back a long way, and it would not surprise me if some of the leading thinkers in AI had a grounding in Vedanta. I just hope they're also grounded in Vedantic principles of ethics and right action.
A little bit more time for questions. We do have another item in the program. Anyone? Or there might be a few more questions. I mean, Zoom, our other Zoomers, if you put your hand up if you've got a question, because we don't want to keep things going too long. And I'm conscious that it's getting later in the evening where Philip is.
It's
All right.
almost 8 o'clock here.
Ah, okay.
It's last night for you.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think maybe we will wind it up then. We're very thankful, Philip, that you could join us. Who knows? Maybe sometime in the future we could see you in person.
I would love it.
And we wish you well with all your writing. I have, like I said, we've got an email circular that goes out almost every week. So the last few weeks, I've been letting everybody know about all the things you're involved with the links. You're very active, I see. And,
Yes. Busier than ever, it seems.
Good. Very good.
All right, let me ask you a question, since there are none for me. Are there Vedanta societies in other parts of Australia as well?
Oh yes, yeah. Especially since the Swamis came in year 2000, our centre here was started by the Nuns. That was quite historical. The first centre of the women's wing of Ramakrishna movement outside India started here in Sydney in 1982. Then the Swamis came in 2000. Now almost pretty every major city in Australia has a centre. There's several Swamis here. So it's come a long way, Vedanta movement here. Very well established.
And it's a lot easier for you to get to Calcutta than it is for us here in America.
Yeah, we can fly out of here in the morning, go to bed in Calcutta, and be ready for action the next morning. I've got another question for you.
Hi, my name's Fred Schneering. Great talk, Philip, and you're going to inspire me to look up your list of books and see which ones I might want to read. Just sounds like some fascinating topics, especially Emerson through the Beatles and onwards. I was humming and ahhing over asking this question, but we see the world news and we see the American administration in its current form and actions and the Israeli government's actions. And it seems to me that whilst Swamiji's done a lot of influencing around the world, there seems to me a long way to go still.
I was hoping to escape.
I apologize most profusely.
No,
I was humming and hawing over this one.
It's so important, and I'm sure, looking at what's happening here from your vantage point, and I've spoken to people in other parts of the world as well. It must be astonishing and alarming, and you can only imagine what it's like here for those of us who thought, especially those of us old enough to have thought we were changing the world in the 60s and 70s, and who thought, like I did, that the introduction of the teachings from India would so radically transform the spiritual landscape that the public life, the life of society and politics and everything, would surely enter, what we were calling a new age and everything. And so it's even more alarming and disappointing for those of us who thought we were changing the world, or that the world was being changed decades ago. And the odd thing is, if you look at what's happening just in the realm of spirituality, the data show that there's this ongoing development toward a worldview that would be deeply compatible with both science and Vedanta. And the methodologies of meditation and yoga and all the Buddhist practices are hugely popular and widespread. It's changing people's lives. But on the other hand, there's all this stuff that's happening on the level of where worldly power is. And it's somehow there's a disconnect there. And I don't understand it. Maybe it's just a backlash. Maybe it's a last gasp of authoritarianism and Christian nationalism and all the other things we're struggling against here. And one can only hope that the good will prevail, but it is bewildering and alarming, and there's no escaping it.
It almost
you have an
seems
answer?
Like, well, I'm just thinking. Well, it just occurred to me. It's like if you're doing a Rubik's cube, and that the penultimate position of the colors on the cube look like a complete and utter chaotic mess, and then in one next movement, it all comes into order. So maybe we're there. Like it's like that, and that this the way some of the world leaders are behaving, it's like it is. Maybe it's a backlash against something, and that's going to just blow themselves out. And
I was,
but not take us with us.
God, how do you think the Canadians feel? They're even closer to, or the Greenlanders.
Yeah.
No one's talking about taking over Australia yet. But you can count on me and my friends to be on your side if that ever happens. But I was talking to somebody today, and I think who was very politically active back in the 60s and 70s, and we were talking about the anti-war movement and the civil rights movement, and we realized that a lot of the attention on the young people back then was on the hippie movement and the anti-war rallies and all that. But numerically, there were a whole lot more young Republicans than there were anti-war demonstrators. And they've been trying to get even for the last 50 years. And they've achieved the power they always sought. And one can only hope it's short-lived and they will self-destruct. We need your help.
Abhijit, I see your hands up. I think we might end with your question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Hello, Phil. Fantastic talk. Thank you very much. Just a question. So Swami Vivekananda, he said a while back that America would be like the first country to fully realize spirituality. I mean, one thing at least we get, what exposure we get, at least say from YouTube's, and like some of the questions which are asked, say in the various, like say Vedanta talks, the one thing that comes through is like the analytical depth that comes through from the questioners, and what is being taught as well is at a very advanced level. My question to you is, say in just light of like say what Swamiji is saying, where are some examples, like say if you could probably share with us, please, like examples in American society where you could see probably ideas of Vedanta sort of being, say, prominent?
If you look at the data on people's religious attitudes or spiritual attitudes over the last 30 years or so, you see a gradual increase, for one thing, in this phenomenon of people saying they're spiritual but not religious. But the other factors are the emphasis on spiritual experience, on inner experience. That has become much more important in people's lives. as practices like meditation and yoga have become more mainstream, those practices have been adapted to secular settings, mental health settings, medical settings, but also religious settings. So people, are sitting in churches and synagogues who meditate every day and also go to yoga studios. And they are spiritual explorers who recognize the truth that's embedded in Vedanta, of that the truth is one and the wise call it by many names. So there's this acceptance of people carving out their individual path and drawing from whatever appeals to them and whatever draws them. And they may not know the term Ishta Devata, but they will say, I'm free to pursue a relationship with divinity or God in my individual way, in the way that suits my personality and my background. And that is such, pure Vedanta for forever. And that has become a dominant attitude in the West. And then, of course, there's little the tolerance. I mean, we have this backlash now of Christian nationalism, but part of that is a backlash to all this, what they think is dangerous spiritual exploration and all that. But when you look at it, as I did, I wrote a biography of Yogananda. I studied what happened with Swami Vivekananda when he came here. They all faced that same opposition. We think of, how incredible it was that Americans were open to Vivekananda's teachings and spread the word and went to see him and supported him and all that. It's extraordinary. Same thing happened with Yogananda and all the others. But there was always a backlash, and it was dangerous to be them. There were always people fighting them and people wanting to banish them and people attacking them. And so we always had both types in America. And now those types have gotten a certain amount of power. But I think part of it is a backlash to what started in the 60s. A big piece of that was this meeting of East and West that some people just can't tolerate. They think the devil is, at work. But, the truth tends to prevail. Thing he said with his fingers crossed.
Well, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Abhijit. Just sorry, one more thing, Philip. I just remember there was an article maybe 10 years ago in Newsweek, forgetting the name of the lady who wrote it, American lady, and the provocative title was "We Are All Hindus Now."
We're all Hindus now.
And
it was further back, Bob, because I mentioned it in American Veda, and that was published in 2010. So it goes back even further.
Yes, and all the points that she made in the article, how those Pew surveys and so on, how this is wider acceptance that there's more than one path to God, and so on. Yes, yeah.
And that trend has continued. And that's great that you knew about that and reminded me and brought it up. It was astonishing. I was researching American Veda at the time, and I saw the Newsweek, and I said, "Oh my God, I hope she doesn't beat me to publishing a book about this."
Well, wasn't it one of the other points was there was an increasing belief in reincarnation?
Yes.
I remember that was one of the points. Yeah.
There were at that time, there was a survey that said that 25% of Americans believed in, and that number must have gone up. I haven't seen any data, but it must have gone up because it's very hard to truly understand and accept karma as a phenomenon in the universe and not at least be open to reincarnation. And with so many people using karma in their language and so forth, if any of them gives any thought whatsoever to the bigger picture of life and death, I would guess that the number of people who believe in reincarnation, or at least are open to the possibility, is probably more than half of Americans, but that's a guess. And I hang out in rarefied circles, so I may not be reliable.
Well, all right. I think we've taken quite a bit of your time, Philip, and it's gone quickly. When anything that's so interesting tends to go quicker than you wish it would. We have another item in our program, which you're most welcome to stay on and attend virtually. It's the
dinner awaits. Dinner awaits me.
Yeah, one of our nuns, she'll be giving a talk. That's PRAVRAJIKA SRIDHARAPRANA. I'll just zoom out. You'll get a little view of the audience here, just out of interest.
Oh, looks like a large, beautiful room.
It's a beautiful old building. It's about 110 years old.
Nice.
We bought it from a Christian group who refused to negotiate with us, and they couldn't sell it. And whoops, I'm fiddling here. And in the end, they agreed to sell to us, but they wouldn't negotiate. But yeah, it's a beautiful old building. So, all right, I'll invite SRIDHARAPRANA to give a talk. And thanks again to you, Philip. I think we'd love to link up with you sometime in the future again.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Very nice to meet you.
Please forgive my country.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to our next item now.
And the mantras, and I'll tell you. I'll start with the mantra, opening, and then you beat it, Paratatve sadalino Ramakrishne samagmaya yodharmasthapanarato viresham tam namamya. He whose mind is ever immersed in the transcendental reality, who, at the behest of Ramakrishna, engaged himself actively in establishing dharma, unto that Vireshwara I offer my humble salutations. Before starting, we will just quickly go on a pilgrimage to the birthplace of Swamiji, of course, virtually. There's a beautiful video which shows a very small video. A few of the nice things I will point out to you. Mute the thing. This is the exact place. This is Swamiji's home. These are all the women's quarters where ladies in an apartment. And this is just, this is the Chandi Mandap where the Durga Puja is usually done. At other times, it was the place where young Narendra, little Narendra played. His favorite game was King and the Court. He would sit on the top. He wouldn't allow anybody to sit there. And then he will appoint his ministers and all that. And then there will be a big dealing what's happening to the kingdom and all that. Little Naren's playground it is. Yes, next. See, the ladies would sit in their inner apartments and see. This is because he is also the Bhuvaneshwari got the blessings of Vireshwar Shiv. So they have established a Shivalinga in the place. These were all inner apartments where Bhuvaneshwari Devi must have been there. She must have given birth at that particular place. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Have another round of going to the holy place. Yes, Vireshwara Shiva. Vireshwara Shiva Linga, they have established it. So this is the shrine. The old watch, look at that. And here, Naren fell down and hurt, and the extra energy which he had was released. If not, Sri Ramakrishna said he would have turned the world upside down. So much of energy in that little frame. So good he fell. Are they able to see? That's good. Fine. That's almost over. Yeah. A lot of work is being done. Swami Premananda wanted, if it comes under mutt, to have a library and all that, so that Ramakrishna Vivekananda ideology will spread. And that has been done. The mutt mission had to go through a lot to get Swamiji's. And this is the place where he was born on 12th January. It's there even in the English. Yeah, this is the house where he was born on 12th January 1862. That's good. Well, however lofty the teachings of the great masters be, unless the torchbearers of the message are competent, qualified, adhikari, what we say, the teachings will not be passed on to the posterity in its pristine purity. That is why the Upanishads praise the worthy disciple along with the teacher. Ashcharyo vakta kushalose labdha. Ashcharyo jnata kushalanushishtah. Wonderful is its teacher, and equally talented its pupil. Wonderful indeed is he who comprehends it, taught by a talented preceptor. Both should be equal. So Sri Ramakrishna brought many of his disciples from different spiritual realm, or they came from different spiritual realm to him to help in his work. Like Brahmananda, he was the eternal companion of Sri Krishna. And Swami Premananda was a part of the goddess of love, Radha. And Niranjanananda, a part of Sri Ramachandra. And Shashi and Sharat, they came from Christ's circle. So like that many. But the principal gem, the Madhyamani of the garland of Sri Ramakrishna is Narendranath, the best among men. To bring him, Sri Ramakrishna had to do a lot. So he brought him from the realm of Akhander Ghar, he used to say, the transcendental reality, where no individual mind can have its individuality. It's a one homogeneous realm. In that realm, there were 7 sages who held their individuality in spite of that. Just imagine the power, the willpower, like thunderbolt. So from there, you all know this, so I don't want to go into detail because of lack of time also. So with great difficulty, Sri Ramakrishna had to bring him from there. He had to awaken him, cajole him, pester him, and finally he opened his eyes and looked and gave his assent that he would go with him and do the bidding. And hence he came to our blessed earth. So it's not possible for an ordinary mortals like us to evaluate or fathom the depth of a person of Swamiji's eminence. So I have no other recourse than to seek the great master in this understanding. So if we can see that the praises of Narendra in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and it is never ending. Sri Ramakrishna was never tired of praising Narendra, his disciple, illustrious disciple. He says, I have not seen another boy like Narendra. Many other disciples are there. He says, these are all good boys. Wonderful. But I haven't seen another person like Narendra. He is efficient in music, vocal, and instrumental, as an acquisition of knowledge, in conversation, as in meditation. He loses normal consciousness in meditation for whole nights. My Narendra is a coin without an alloy whatsoever. Toss it up and you will hear the truest sound. Is it for nothing? And he's a Brahmo. He goes to Brahmo Samaj. But he's not like other Brahmos. He's truly a knower of Brahman. Is it for nothing that I love Narendra? Narendra is Dhyana Siddha, adept, perfect in meditation. And there is many more are there. He compares him like anything and praises him too. But I haven't seen, or we do not know any other guru praising their disciples as Sri Ramakrishna praised his disciple, Swami Vivekananda. And he deserves it too. Yeah, true, he deserves it. Well, his training under Sri Ramakrishna was only for us. If a person of that eminence, he doesn't need any training. But all the training was done for our sake, for the modern man who is always assaulted by doubts and confusion. He was endowed, Swamiji was endowed with innumerable blessed qualities or virtues, all of which stemmed out of his awareness of his true divine nature. But I'm dealing with only one. The prominent among them was his natural absorption in meditation, be it in childhood, teenager, and his struggles in establishing himself in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi in Kashipur. In childhood, we have seen him, little boy playing with his friends. According to the samskara, Sri Ramakrishna says, in the past birth, there was a man, there was a boy who was, who had worked as a, dhobi? Washerman in his past life. So in this verse, he was born as a prince. So when they were playing, he would say, come on, those games are not good. I will lie down on my back and you wash the clothes. So, the washerman's samskara, even being a prince, is there. So Swamiji's samskara being always in the highest Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and he would tell, these things are not good. Come, let's meditate. Calling all the poor boys, his friends, to meditate. And so once he went, they all went to the attic, because that's the quietest place, because women and ladies won't be there shouting and screaming and telling them not to do things. So they sat there and meditated. And somehow, due to the heat or anything, a snake entered the place. And it lifted its hood and was standing in front of Naren. The other kids got up and went, but Naren was not aware of it. So this shows how deep his absorption was. Even as a child, playing, deep absorption. And then when he was at 14, I'm just taking some of the incidents. When he was at 14, his father was transferred, due to work business, he was in Central India, Raipur. So Narendra went. So he had to take the family and go. On the way, just seeing the mountain, huge mountains, he saw beautiful scenery. And suddenly his eye caught a huge beehive hanging. And then suddenly his thoughts went to that and how how much they must have struggled and built this, the struggles of the bee, the intelligence behind it, the principle of intelligence behind. All this took him to the glory of God. And he lost out of consciousness. And he was lying in the cart. Nobody knew when. When he woke up, he found that they had left quite a long distance from that place. So this absorption. And again, young youth, he went to Devendranath Thakur to ask his famous question, have you seen God? And Devendranath Thakur said, oh, you have got such wonderful yogic eyes. You are endowed with these virtues. If you meditate, you will certainly get the results. So he intensified his meditation. And one day he said he was meditating and he finished his meditating and sitting quiet. And from the wall, a serene looking monk came out and stood before him. And Narendra was looking at him. He was looking, and the figure opened its mouth. Suddenly, Narendra was seized with a fear. He just opened the door and walked out. You know, when you come to this world, always these things happen. So naturally, and then he said, why did I do that foolish thing? So he went back. No, the figure was not there. He felt that it must have been Buddha. So, and then of course, in Kashipur garden, he worked a lot to establish in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. He couldn't. So he went to Sri Ramakrishna. Everybody have had their ideals fulfilled. Only I am missed out. What do you want? I want to remain in Nirvikalpa Samadhi continuously for 3, 4, 5 days, and now and then come out just to eat something so that the body will sustain, and then go back again into Samadhi. Because he was always in Samadhi in that realm. So naturally he wanted to cling on to that experience just to be by himself. Then Swami Sri Ramakrishna said, after all the trouble I have taken to bring you here, and you want to sit and take care of your own bliss. No way. You cannot be so mean-minded. There are better experience, higher experience than this. Instead of seeing the Atman, your own self within you, you see yourself in everyone. See the Lord in everyone. Adore him, serve him. There's a better way of doing. It's you who say, Jo kuch hai so tu hi hai. And now you want to be by yourself. No way. He rebuked him for being so selfish. Just imagine selfishness to be in Samadhi. Then you can imagine what caliber he was of. Anyway, so he had to come down, but still Sri Ramakrishna blessed him, and he was in that stage when he came out. He said, no more, that's it. You had once, I'm locking that experience for you, and till you finish the mother's work, then I will unlock it. So with this type of background, he went to America. It is said that when he sat down for meditation, in 2 minutes, everything was lost. Even though his body was just covered by black sheet of mosquitoes, you know, Calcutta is famous for mosquitoes, but no feeling, no, nothing, absolutely no body consciousness. That was his thing. And then with this habit, he came to America, and he found it in the beginning very difficult to control the momentum that carried him into deep meditations. He would take a ticket in the tram, go, sit, and be lost in meditation. And he would have passed his destination. And again, he'll be disturbed by the conductor demanding his fee. And again, he'll say, oh, he'll pay the money, and then again go back to meditation. So like this, it used to happen 2, 3 times he had to pay the fare because of his absorption. He wouldn't even know when his destination has gone there. So with he felt ashamed of himself for that and tried his best to overcome them. So the other great characters which emerged when he was in the company of people, he's a yogi of par excellence. That was my topic. So other qualities other than this absorption, when all these qualities will come out when you deal with people. There's a saying, if you are alone, everyone is Paramahamsa. All can be a Paramahamsa, nobody to disturb. When you mingle with people, then you understand what you are. Then there will be a clash, and then that element will come out. So what sort of character he exhibited when he was in the company of others? An eyewitness says, he was marvelous combination of sweetness and irresistible force. Verily, a child and a prophet in one. What a beautiful, yeah. And then the second one, three I'm going. Simply to walk on the city street with him meant to be transported to marvelous worlds of thought and power. Not from big discussion or anything. Suddenly, from the sheerest fun, even in the fun, through fun, he was able to take you to exalted states. And what truly a yogi is, he always made one feel that he was all spirit and not body. See, the idea, when you see him, you can feel it's a spirit. He's a spirit, that aura he had around him, and that he was not a body. And this, in spite of the fact that his magnificent physical frame irresistibly attracted the attention of everyone, in spite of that. See how beautiful. That is when he passed away, he told Shashi Maharaj, Swami Ramakrishnananda, he revealed himself to him. He said, oh Shashi, I have spat out, I have given off my body, like how one would throw the spittle from the mouth. Just imagine how much of detachment, how much of aversion he had for the beautiful body. Because the knowledge of the self, the knowledge that he was pure consciousness, infinite, indivisible, was so obvious to him that he felt always he was just like a prisoner in their body. Just imagine the state of his mind. Imagine the experience that he every day passed through, every moment he passed through. It was because he as spirit was more tangible for him than he as the body. That's the idea. And so the great yogi that he was, with a fraction of his mind, he attended to the world. And that mind was brilliantly alert and was in itself far more than a match for the keenest intellect. See? And that fraction was informed and illumined by a far larger part that lay quite untouched beneath the surface, always absorbed in God, ready to pour out blessings upon and alter the lives of those who came to him. It reminds me of the Purusha Sukta, Padasya Vishwa Bhutani Tripadasya Amritam Divi. Only a quarter of that Purusha is this manifested universe. The three-fourth of it is unmanifest. So only with a fraction of the mind, he did this work of rejuvenation of humankind and India, with a fraction of his mind. The rest of it was always immersed in the absorption, in the contemplation of God or in self. With a small, just imagine how clear, how strong, how one focused that mind was. Amazing. And so there's a story as how the lives gets transformed. There is a small park near Mary Hill's house, the hostess of Swamiji, Hill's family, there, a Lincoln Park. And he would used to go in the afternoons to bask in the sun, sit quietly there, or in the mornings. So one young mother with her daughter, 5 or 6 years old daughter, would come every day, would be walking over the park, near the park, and they would see Swamiji, and then do her shopping, marketing, daily marketing and all that. So one day the lady took courage, trusting Swamiji, he must be a really good guy. So she one day came, sir, can I drop my daughter with you and just do my business and come? Can you look after her? So I said, no problem, leave her. So every day then on, it became a habit with her. Both mother and child will come, she will put good days. So put the daughter there, leave the daughter there, and then she would do the thing and come, nothing more. So the child had the good fortune of being in the company of such a great soul. And the child might be playing there in front of him and he'll be quiet there. He wouldn't meditate at that time because he had the responsibility of looking after the girl. Certainly he didn't do that. And then after a few years, the matter didn't end with this. After a few years, the lady really came to know who this person was. And she showed the photo to her daughter when she was 15 or 16. Do you remember your friend? Of course. Who will forget Swamiji? Even once if they see Swamiji, can never forget. Even our Bharati Pranama, she was just only 4 years girl. When she saw Swamiji, Sister Nivedita would take the little kids, her students. And she says, I can't remember anything, but I can never forget those eyes, those bright eyes. She could, 4 years girl, how much can she? But that eyes she could remember. So this child was 2 years old. So she could remember. And then later on, after a few years, the memory of Swamiji became so much that she went in search to find out whether she could get any idea about him. And then she came to the ashramas. It was quite maybe in her 30s or something like that. And she came to the ashrama and she became a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. She became deeply spiritual and she was the guru of Akhilananda, Swami Akhilananda. You know, he said that the next generation which took up the Vedanta. So do not know how many lives are transformed like this. Wonderful. And then so many times Swamiji would be about to merge in Samadhi. Many times it would happen. And once he says that he was sitting on the shores of Michigan and his mind was Lake Michigan. At that time, his mind was just entering into Samadhi. Suddenly he saw Sri Ramakrishna. Oh, he remembered the responsibility that he has on his shoulders. He has brought me, I have to do my work. So his mind came down and then he directed it towards the job. So such was his so such was the wonderful Swamiji. And then another point, why I say unique, because yogis are always contemplating on God or the Atman. Our yogi is the one who can contemplate on Mother India. And that's more on the rock tip of the rock, on the end of the subcontinent, Kanyakumari. There he sat and lost himself in meditation, not on God or the self, on the motherland. So in this way, he is yogi par excellence. He's different, anything. And what did he see? What did he meditate on? He meditated on the glory of the India, its past and future, and the degradation that it was going through. And he wanted to get out, bring her out of that. And that in that place, this yogi's object of meditation was not either Atman nor the Ishtadevata. It was the great India. So this is a unique thing about Swami Vivekananda. He can be a great yogi contemplating completely on the transcendental reality. At the same time, he was so much dedicated to the work which his guru had brought. And then I do not know whether it's right for me to tell or not. There's a very funny incident, Swamiji's centenary celebration. I'm just relaxing myself and telling this story. Swamiji's centenary in Calcutta, in that Maidan, they had a big program. And Many Swamis of America were invited. I believe Sambuddhanandaji, if I am right, he was the overall seer of the centenary celebration, centenary, 63. And he had invited Swami Nikhilananda and many more. And Swami Vivekananda came to the stage and he spoke nicely for 15 minutes. And he sat. I don't know, one of our Mataji said she was there, I believe. Immediately, Sambuddhanandaji jumped up and said, "Hey, Nikhilananda, I brought you all the way from America, spending so many thousands of rupees just to sit for 15 minutes. Come on, go back and speak for an hour." And Nikhilananda also came back, took the point from where he had stopped and continuously. See, the love between the monks and the dedication. So like that, Sri Ramakrishna brought all the way Swamiji from the, what do you call, Saptarishi Mandal, and just he will sit and meditate. No way. I have done stuff to go, so much trouble I have taken to wake you up from this superconscious state and have brought him, and you just always keep on meditating and merging in samadhi. No, you can't. I think he had it in Thousand Island Park, if I'm right. Thousand Island Park. He had understood, and that's why he was in a hurry to finish his job. Not many years left. He came 97 or 1902. He passed away. Not even 40. He had said, "I will not see my 40th year," and he had to work so much to. He is not for just India. That is true. Sister Nivedita says, he gave to the world a faith that had no fear of truth. And to his own country, he had consolidated. The future son of India can see what his religion is in these papers, in these books. On her introduction to Swamiji, book, she says, so this is what he is. He is for the world and for the nation. He is not just India's, he is universal, Vishwatma. And he is dedicated to universal liberation. Vishwamukti, there's a beautiful Vishwamukti Samarpitatma. He has dedicated his life for the liberation, emancipation of the humankind from the clutches of matter. He wanted us to know that we are spiritual first. We are spirits, blessed and eternal. Then only we are matter. So his exhortation to us is, teach yourself, teach everyone his real nature. Call upon the sleeping soul and see how it awakes. Power will come, glory will come, goodness will come, purity will come, and everything that is excellent will come when the sleeping soul is roused to self-conscious activities. There's a beautiful prayer. Tejosi tejo mai dehi, viryamasi viryam mai dehi, balamasi balam mai dehi, ojosi ojo mai dehi. On this blessed day, we pray to Swamiji that his brilliance itself, may he endow us with brilliance of intelligence. His vigor itself, may he endow us with vigor. His strength itself, may he endow us with strength. And his ojas, spirituality itself, and may he endow us the strength to be truly spiritual. Thank you.
Okay, happily, look at that. The sun's out, things are drying out, weather's cooperating for the next item, lunch, which presumably you can now have outside without being harassed by the weather. Just a few quick announcements about what's coming up in the weeks to come. Next Sunday will be just a simple program from 11 a.m. to 12 noon with the nuns here in Vedanta Hall, some reading from some of the books, and then some meditation, guided and silent meditation. And then the first talk for the year will be the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That'll be on the 1st of February. GOLDBERG will be giving that talk. Happily, we've just received confirmation that PRAVRAJIKA Aloka Pranaji will be coming to visit. She just got her visa yesterday. So she'll be arriving on 3rd of February. She'll be giving a talk on Sri Ramakrishna's birthday, so we'll give you more details about that. And we've got Shivaratri celebration coming up on the 15th of February. Anyway, we'll keep you informed of Sri Ramakrishna's birthday celebration the following weekend. That's on Sunday the 22nd. Anyway, we'll keep you informed about all of that through the emails. So now please stay back and have some lunch. Our thanks as always to all the many people who have been helping with the cooking. Really appreciate that. And we'll look forward to seeing you all now as we start all our activities again for the new year.